Well, the NCAA men's volleyball season starts Saturday, and I got a hold of my buddy Kevin Barnett, is more famous now for the Net Live, but a former national team player, and he'll be on top of this not only as an announcer for the Pac-12, but because he follows men's volleyball. And Kevin joins me from the Los Angeles area. Kevin, how are you?
Hey, Lee, I'm good. And I hope I'm more famous from the Net Live at some point soon.
Well, I think in the volleyball world now, it's a combination of things for you because you've done so many things. But, you do play-by-play, you do an analysis for television, and, of course, the Net Live, which is so popular each week, except when you're doing, the holiday respite. So,
well, I think we hit a decent point this year when I was walking up the stairs at the Molten party, and I tripped, and the people coming down the stairs said, just like the holiday show, huh? So people are paying attention somewhere. I'm not sure where, but spread out across the United States.
For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, I recommend strongly that you go back and look at the last podcast before the NCAA championship.
Before the convention special, we had our holiday special, and it's 3 hours of hijinks.
It was beautiful. The men's season starts, and there's a lot of things to consider. We finished up with it was a fantastic season last year, one of the best championship events you could ever imagine, with
Right.
beating Lewis. And since then, there's been coaching changes. Of course, a lot of really good players moved on because of graduation. And one, Thomas Jeschke from Loyola, forsaked his senior year. So there's just a lot of new things to consider this season. You agree?
Oh, there's all kinds of new things. You look at just the coaching changes that are out there. You had Bill Ferguson gone at USC. Jeff Nygaard replaces him. You have Dan Friend, who chose to stay put at Lewis, although he had opportunities to go elsewhere. Jay Hosick moves on from Penn State, longtime assistant for Mark Pavlik and many EIVA titles. He goes to George Mason. And now, of course, the most recent and perhaps the biggest is the change at Loyola. And you have Shane Davis leaving the Loyola Ramblers after consecutive national titles, and he leaves that program in the capable hands of Mark Hulse, who is a Pepperdine alum.
Oh, well, and most important, because so are you. And I interviewed Mark. We have a video chat elsewhere on this website right after he got the job, and he seemed more than prepared, but you could tell that his wheels were spinning because it had to be a heck of a week.
Oh, it's an amazing change. It's not something I think anyone saw coming. I knew there were a few people in the hunt for that Northwestern job. I had not heard Shane Davis's name, and obviously Shane making a calculation as to what's best for him and his family to remain in the Chicago area, have a stable job. I think the women's game offers certainly broader opportunities than you're going to get in the men's game. And if you get a shot at a Big Ten job in the same city, you don't have to really disrupt your family. You get to be a part of that conference, a team that wasn't too bad last year in Northwestern, and you have the proven track record. You are riding the high of back-to-back national titles. That's the time to jump. And so I'm not surprised that Shane Davis did it. The timing surprises me because obviously it's right before the beginning of the men's season.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the men's season, there's a couple of storylines that I find particularly intriguing. BYU, ranked number 1 in the ABC poll, the preseason poll, gets back Ben Patch. And that's no small thing because the last time I saw him a few years ago, I was sitting on press row at the championships looking up at the bottom of his feet. He jumps like few humans I have ever seen before. And now 2 years later, I presume much bigger and stronger. And BYU is loaded. And at a coaching change too, we might add.
That's one that we didn't cover. That's what I was thinking is Chris McGowan is out there. So we'll see what the result of that is. We'll also find out what is the result of going on a mission for a year and a half for the Mormon Church for Ben Patch, who was canvassing, I think it was Ohio, for the Mormon Church. And he has come back. And my understanding is he's been back for a little while now. But is he really ready to start a season? Are his volleyball skills where they need to be to make the progressive jump that everyone expects from him after a pretty amazing season a couple of years ago? So that's kind of an unknown. New coach. They had some outside hitter consistency issues last year at BYU. They add Ben Patch back in. Where is he? Is he further along than he was? Has he regressed? We won't really know until we get into the season.
Yeah, and also in that poll, UC Irvine, number 2, a really loaded roster, and David Diffen's got to feel very, very good about coaching this team going into this season.
Yeah, they lost Zach LaCavera. That'll be a huge loss for them, but they returned Tamir Hershko, who's expected to have a huge season, and Jason Agopian in the middle, who's certainly a force, especially defensively. They have a pretty nice and consistent roster. They're maybe the most complete team from last year coming to this year, carrying the most firepower. into the MPSF play, and then hopefully for them further on.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list, and of course the ABCA preseason poll is from the coaches, and it's not the be-all end-all, but it's a real good indicator. Loyola Chicago third, Long Beach State fourth, and they've been Long Beach has been lurking the last couple of years, and keep waiting for them to make this jump into that final high group. Am I wrong there?
Well, Long Beach is one of the more interesting teams this season, and that's because last year they were not very good at all. Of course, internally teams want to feel like they're good, but you look at their roster, it was a mess. They do return a pretty nice middle blocker on that team in Taylor Gregory, who had a nice season last year in what was a very tough situation, but they redshirted their libero Sato last year in order to bring him back for this upcoming season. And now they've added in a freshman they've been waiting for a long time, TJ DeFalco. They finally have him in. He's a kid who's been in the USA gym even before he's out of high school for the Huntington Beach Oilers. Now he comes into college, and he has been much celebrated. They added in a good setter as well from Huntington Beach, and then they also add Kyle Ensing. And Ensing and DeFalco, in their latest match, which was just last night, combined for 44 of Long Beach State's 65 kills playing against Alberta. So I think Long Beach is a drastically improved team. What you're going to find with them, or the thing to watch, is where are they mid-season? How much does a long season and the demands of collegiate volleyball and also a collegiate classroom, how much does that affect the freshman talent that Long Beach has that definitely can do the volleyball to start? So where they are mid-season, where they are end season, that's going to be the thing to watch with the 49ers.
Well, but you talk about freshmen like that. We talked about Ben Patch 2 years ago before he went on his mission trip. He was a freshman and was remarkable. And then last year in the NCAA championships, Jeff Jendrick, the middle for Loyola, was MVP. And, of course, he was a freshman. And he's maybe the most intriguing player to watch going into this year.
I think the kids are more prepared than ever to play collegiate volleyball. Still, to me, always a question when you change levels and that demand is made of you for that extended period of time, what's really going to happen? But, yeah, Jeff Jendrick is a huge part of the return for Loyola Ramblers, but they are missing some pieces. I have some real questions about who's going to step up and fill the offensive role vacated by Thomas Jeske and the other pieces of that team that went into that championship. Lewis is another team. Of course, we had the All-Illinois final last year. Lewis located in Joliet, Loyola just in Chicago, about an hour apart. It was an amazing thing for the Midwest to take over the sport last year in a way that hasn't happened before. And I see things evening out right now across the nation because the talent pool, while not growing like the women's has grown, without those scholarships, it's just not possible. If you put 12 scholarships in the men's program today, in 4 years, you would have a nationwide competition for the national title. But with 4.5, it limits that process. But the Midwestern schools, I think, definitely showed last year that they can be on par with anybody in the nation in what is typically a West Coast dominated or Western United States dominated sport. And this year, Dan Friend, he's going to cope with the loss of quite a few players, and he's going to have to earn his money that he stayed for there at Lewis.
Yeah, can you imagine 20-something years ago when a young Kevin Barnett from the Chicagoland area had the options of that type of volleyball? You might not have gone out west.
No, I would have looked hard if I was recruited out of high school, which, by the way, I sucked coming out of high school, so nobody wanted me until I went through L.A. Pierce Junior College. But, yeah, I mean, right now, if you are a Chicago player, you have a lot of good options. You can go east to Penn State, and the play that they've had, I don't know, I think it's 49 consecutive EIVA titles or however many Pavlik has won out there. You have Ohio State, who just a few years ago won the national title. You have Loyola, who won the national title the last 2 years. You have Lewis, who has won the national title previously and who was national runner-up last year and was in the playoffs the year before. You have so many options as a player that, yeah, it would be hard and it would be difficult, and you would have different choices. Do I want to stay in the Midwest? Do I want an East Coast experience? Do I want to go all the way to Hawaii? How many time zones do you want to cover? Or do I want to go up and down the West Coast somewhere?
Well, the other thing, too, is that all of the poll is dominated by those three conferences, the EIVA, the MIVA, and the MPSF. Eventually, Conference Carolinas, which gets a bid now, eventually, maybe not this year because they don't have one of those teams in that list, but it'll happen where one of them will break through and we'll go, wow, there it is.
I hope they break through. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough to draw the talent necessary when you're not able to offer a lot of financial support and compete on the same playing field. There's just not – I don't see the Conference Carolinas breaking through anytime soon as far as being an actual national contender. I understand why they're included and why that automatic bid is there. I think it's good for the sport. But as far as the matches go, it's going to be a long time before one of those teams picks off somebody in that first round of the playoff, in my opinion.
No, I agree, but it sounds good when I say it. I hope to visit with you again this season, but for everyone, the Net Live is recorded at, you guys do it at about 11:30 your time, Mondays?
Yeah, we go 10 a.m. Pacific time most Mondays. That's how we put it, most Mondays. So we're going to start our 8th year of the podcast coming up here on January 11th. That's the plan. We may get to it earlier, probably not. But at least January 11th, we will have episode 1 of year 8. And that means that we have several years of previous podcasts available on iTunes. It is free. All you have to do is search the Net Live up there on iTunes. And you mentioned earlier the convention special and also the holiday special, the back-to-back episodes to conclude year 7 and 2015 for us were a lot of fun. And if you're going to get off on episode 1 for you with our podcast, either one of those is a pretty good pick.
That shameless plug brought to you by
Barnett.
and if you go to the one at the convention, I'm on there for a little while because I dropped in on the guys, him and Jeremy Rouchet, better known as DJ. All right, I'll get you out of here on this. You got a hell of a busy year. You got not only this men's volleyball and the broadcast you'll do, but the Olympics loom in August, where you'll be down in Rio for quite a while. And it's just, there's so much going on. So you got to be pretty excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a great year. I'm looking forward to the Olympics in particular. Actually, next week, coming up this weekend, Thursday through Sunday, if I'm getting the dates right, it's going to happen for the women that they may qualify. They're going to play 3 matches back to back to back. They're in Lincoln, Nebraska. They still are not in the Olympic Games. They finished 3rd in the World Cup. It used to be top 3 that qualified. This past year, it was just top 2, and the United States women went 3rd. So they have to win this tournament. I expect them to win the tournament in Lincoln. But it's an opportunity for fans to come out and once again support some of the great USA women's stars that are out there. And I think the USA women, 100% a medal contender, very well could win the gold medal. On the men's side, they are 100% a medal contender in what is, I think, a tougher field, is a deeper field on the men's side. And it's just up and down. You never know who's going to beat who week in, week out with the men's side. They could go gold medal as well. It's going to have to be really, really a perfect set of circumstances for them down in Rio. They're going to defeat Brazil. You have to give Brazil, on both the men and women's side, playing at home in Rio, they are the favorites in indoor volleyball. And I'll be down there with Paul Sunderland. We'll be covering men's and women's indoor. Last year we gave you 42 matches in 15 days. I don't know that I can do 44 or 45. My ears might fall off from the headphones. But we're going to have some good coverage for you down there from Rio, and the U.S. teams are certainly in the mix and exciting.
2016 is going to be awesome, and great way to kick it off with you, the first video chat of the year. Well, no, second, like I said, we got ahead. And,
Mark Hulse.
Yeah. Well, no, wait. Now let me think about this. Did I get him after the first of the year? After, the days are all blending into one. No, he was the last of 2015.
January 1st. How could anybody have been before me today?
Good point. A volleyball mind is a terrible thing to waste, and that's what's happening to mine, which is why I've taken a little bit of a break. Hey, Kevin, thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Lee. Keep doing what you're doing with Destination Volleyball, please. It's a great effort, and I know volleyball fans need it.